Americans can trace their roots to every corner of the earth. We represent every race, culture, and religious faith. And while it sometimes feels like we can't agree on anything, we're united by ideals that make this diversity possible, including the notion that every individual has the right to believe, speak, and live according to their own conscience. But sometimes, even basic rights have to be balanced. For example, yelling "fire" in a crowded theater is not the same thing as free speech. So over the years, our rights have been tested in the court system, and time and again, they've been protected. But when it comes to Americans living out their faith, things have shifted out of balance. The problem began in 1990 when the Supreme Court ruled that long-held religious protections could no longer override a government policy. This shocking decision overturned decades of legal precedent and, in effect, downgraded the free exercise of religion to a second or even third-class right. Now in the courts, virtually any government policy can limit how people act out their faith, and it doesn't even require a compelling reason. Why should you care about this? Even if you aren't a religious person, the right to free exercise is really the right to live peacefully according to your conscience, especially when you're in the minority. Thankfully, both parties in Congress recognized this, and in 1993, they came together almost unanimously and passed a bill to put things back in balance. The law mandated two things. First, that the government must once again prove a truly compelling reason to limit a person's free exercise of religion. Second, that any limitations imposed by the government must be applied in the least burdensome way possible. This overwhelmingly bipartisan bill became known as the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA. But a few years later, the Supreme Court ruled that as a federal law, RFRA only protects people from federal government policies, once again leaving people of faith vulnerable to city and state policies that force them to violate their beliefs or that prevent them from doing what their faith requires. Now, it's up to individual states to pass their own state RFRA laws to make sure people of faith are protected from all levels of government. But how does RFRA work in the real world? Here are a few examples. At a public kindergarten in Texas, a Native American boy was told he was required to cut his traditionally styled hair before he could attend school. The parent sued, appealing to the state's RFRA law, and they won. The court ruled that the government-run school did not have a compelling reason to overrule the family's religious freedom. But RFRA is not an excuse for anyone to just circumvent the law. A Muslim woman in Florida refused to remove her full-face veil for a driver's license photo, so the DMV declined to renew her license. She sued, citing Florida's RFRA law, but the court found that the government did have a compelling reason to require full-face photos. However, to enforce the law in the least burdensome way possible, the woman was allowed to have her photo taken in a private room by a female photographer. This common-sense balancing test is exactly how RFRA works. It simply provides a tool for the courts to weigh people's religious rights versus the government's duties. So what might happen in a state that doesn't have a RFRA law? In 2017, at a public university in Georgia, a student was told to stop preaching in a designated free speech zone because his words were said to be disturbing. The student has initiated a lawsuit to challenge that policy. But the state of Georgia has taken the position that the free exercise of religion is a third-class right, and therefore the school merely has to show it has a rational reason to win the case, even if the resulting burden on the student's religion is substantial. Unfortunately, misinformed people have claimed that RFRA is a discrimination law, but those same opponents cannot point to a single case of discrimination in RFRA's long legal history. Instead, RFRA is about restoring the basic human right of all Americans to peacefully live according to their own beliefs. Georgia must act to join over 30 other states that have already restored the basic right to free exercise of religion. Share this video with friends and family and sign a petition today urging Georgia government and business leaders to support RFRA.